So the meeting has just started to be recorded, and I would like to hand over the floor to our first speaker, to Professor Claudia Fahrenwald from the University of Upper Austria. I'm going to stop sharing and give Claudia, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you very much, Jens. I hope everybody can see me, can hear me. If that's the case, yeah, I want to say welcome to everybody. I'm really happy that so many people are here attending from all over Europe and even from all over the world. And please allow me to say a very warm welcome to the participants of Africa, because I have a connections and a research relationship with Uganda, and I suppose these are the participants from Africa because I invited them also cordially to join our class here. So as Jens already announced, I will talk about supporting service learning as a school leader with a focus on school development. So it's not necessary to be a school leader. It's just necessary to be a person who likes to develop something in her or his school. And so everybody, teachers, school administrators, school leaders, everybody who's interested in this topic is very welcome. And I prepared a short presentation with 2 case studies where I did some research for, and I will just share with you now the screen. And Jens, you told we have the possibility to ask questions later on in the breakout rooms, but I think it's also possible to write some short questions into the chat. So if there is really something you just want to say after the presentation, please feel free, write it into the chat, and then we can discuss it. Okay. So I will open my presentation. And it seems that it works. Oh, everybody, I cannot see anybody anymore, but so please, Jens, give me any sign. I will just...
You have not shared your presentation with us yet.
I have not shared my presentation, so I have to start again. Then something went wrong. Just a moment, because it was amazing that everybody... No, this one. No, I think here we are.
Yes.
Okay.
If you could put it also into presentation mode.
Yeah, no.
Perfect.
Here
Thank you.
Okay. Now it looks better. Thank you.
Looks great.
Okay. So, yeah, hello again and welcome to my presentation on supporting service learning as a school leader or a school administrator. And looking at our audience, I also would like to add as a teacher and any person who is interested to make schools more democratic in the future. I will give you a short insight in some theoretical framework of the research, and then I will show you empirical results from 2 case studies. One is from Germany at the University of Hamburg, where I worked some years ago for 3 semesters, and I did some research there. And the second one is the case study from Upper Austria, where we just introduced service learning recently, and I will end up with a short conclusion. So if we look at the theoretical framework, why are topics like service learning getting more and more important during the last years? It's because schools as the central educational organizations exist against the backdrop of current cultural and social changes, and they must respond to new challenges. Therefore, a lot of school development is needed, and school development more and more becomes an inter-organizational cooperation within learning regions and within school networks. And service learning, I hope to show you, is an important tool and an important means of school development, which we can implement in this way. So my empirical results will tell you something about emerging networks between schools and community partners from 2 case studies in Hamburg, Germany, and Upper Austria. And they are both dealing with service learning projects. And this introduction, this implementing and this institutionalization of service learning leads to new forms of collaboration and networks. They break down traditional barriers between educational organizations and their surrounding communities. So let's have a short insight. We will look at a case study conducted at the University of Hamburg. The sample were 10 schools who implemented service learning in a very new way. And this implementation of service learning was supported by the Community Foundation in Hamburg. So we see it was from the beginning an inter-organizational cooperation. Our research method was that we did interviews with administrators, teachers, and students involved in service learning programs as change agents in different types of schools. Service learning was implemented into elementary schools, middle schools, as well as high schools. And so we had all the range of different school types, and we did some research on it. The main goals of our research were to learn more about the educational practice, to get more information about the learning experiences the school did, and to look at the new forms of cooperation and networks inside and outside of schools, which were emerging, introducing service learning. So here you can have a short look who were the partners, and you see some pictures of service learning projects. You can do it in different fields, as we have already learned from the first course. You can do it in social projects, in ecological projects. You can do it in cultural and intercultural projects. And the cooperation partners here were the foundation, service learning, the University of Hamburg, and the Community Foundation of Hamburg. And what did we learn when we did our research about introducing and implementing service learning? It was primarily had primarily positive and innovative effects on school development in the perspective of organizational learning, because the schools face the challenges of border crossing and building new individual and organizational and inter-organizational spaces, both in time and places. So the schools were really challenged, but they thought it's a very good learning experience. And they envisioned effective, even necessary ways of thinking about spaces and potential of transformation. And I will try to make this explicit by the underlying metaphors we discovered in our interviews. So the people, the interview partners, they talked a lot about spatial metaphors introducing service learning. They talked about bridging islands, about open up the otherwise encapsulated school to the outside world. They even talked about encountering an intergalactic alien and feeling like being a stranger. So just by starting to go outside of school and starting this new service learning projects. But we also heard about energy-based metaphors, teachers who caught fire, administrators who personified fire and flame. So we see these people really felt like burning for introducing something new for their schools. And if we summarize up in a very brief view, you can look at this picture. These emerging networks, they mean that schools are in the center, they're the core organization of introducing service learning inside of schools. And they also have to open outside of school. They have to get in contact, in new contexts, new ways of contact with school administration, as well as with community partners. They have research partners from the university, and they need the support of the community foundation. So there are really many interorganizational new challenges. And the second case study I would just give you some insights in is this one of Upper Austria. So a little bit you can get an idea of what schools are facing by introducing service learning. We had some research in Upper Austria in schools who took part in a school competition about innovative schools, which was initiated by a local newspaper. And they were looking for schools offering some kind of civic engagement education. And we looked at the sample of 75 schools all over Upper Austria. And we had the similar or the same main research goals, looking at and learning about the educational practice, getting more to know about the learning experiences of the schools, and also to look especially on the new forms of cooperation and networks inside and outside of schools. The research methods here were document analysis and semi-structured interviews. Why document analysis? Because the schools had to write down their projects for the newspaper, and they submitted it to the newspaper, and we got from the newspaper all these submissions. And so first we looked at the text the schools have produced, and then we get in contact with the schools, and we leaded some interviews. We wanted to find out more about these new emerging networks between different types of organizations, like schools and environmental organizations, elderly care organizations, and migrant organizations. If you look at our document analysis, you can see the actors. The main categories there were students involved, school community involved, parents involved, community partners involved. The contents were social, cultural, multicultural, and ecological. The time, there were some single projects. There were projects which lasted for several months, for a whole school year, or even for several years. And the space was projects inside the school, projects inside the community, and even projects all over the world. And these subcategories, you can see some special organizations like elderly care organization, a tourist promotion network. The contents were about social welfare, animal protection, environment protection, even global learning. So we will learn more about it also later from Athens here. And it was a fundraising campaign, school festival project with leisure time and with dealing with animals. And the participants were single classes, whole schools, and even the world. So there were especially partnerships with Africa and India. Summing up, you see a similar or the same picture. These new service learning projects, the implementation of service learning meant new cooperations and interorganizational cooperations for the schools, with school administration, with the community partners, with the regional networks, and even with the whole world. So these were the two case studies and the main research results. And coming to a conclusion, we can say these organizational learning challenges inside of outside of schools mean it was necessary reorganizing school time, for example, to offer new professional development programs, to implement multi-year projects, to give some course release, and also to introduce some flexible scheduling. And also it meant reorganizing school spaces, for example, collaborative programs across grades, class time outdoor or in the community, public forums, and social media spaces for sharing best practices. So a lot of new organizational learning challenges. And if we can just have a closer look, what does this mean for the individual level? It means providing a means of integrated holistic learning for the teachers. So really to face social, emotional, and interdisciplinary, transdisciplinary learning. On an organizational level, this means transformation of spatial dimensions of time and place. So we really saw an implementation of new ways of learning in traditional educational organizations and also between traditional organizations, educations. And on a society level, that means that you need a new culture and you create a new culture of cooperation between schools, communities, and other partner organizations. So it's a multifaceted transformation of professional and organizational identity. What does this mean for changing schools in a changing world? Service learning can help to define a new educational mission of schools in our changing world. It offers new possibilities of emerging networks as a response to a changing phase of civil society. And it is associated with a variety of learning challenges at the individual and at the organizational level. Thank you very much. Here are the references for people who will be interested to read a little bit more. Most of them are in German, but there are also some publications in English, so we will share everything we will have in the follow-up of this class. I'm done with my presentation, and I will just stop sharing the screen, and here I am. If there are some short questions now, I will be happy to answer them, and if not, I think time is passing very fast. Jens, you will tell me what to do.
First of all, thank you very much for this very brief insight. Obviously, we can just scratch on the surface here, giving the time constraints that we have. But I think it's becomes quite clear that service learning is an opportunity for schools opening up for the teacher to open the classroom, for the school as an organization to start collaborating with the organization outside of the school, which leads to a cascading effect. Basically, that's what I took from cooperation, from new networks, from also then input from outside the school that comes into the school. I can see there's a comment in the chat about the idea to conduct a case study like this in Africa. This might be an interesting follow-up for you, Claudia.
A case study, the cooperation with Africa.
I think, this might not be something to start now, but to maybe stay in contact with Mr. Kyoko and see what can be done. If there are no questions at this moment, we will still have the opportunity, or you will still have the opportunity to discuss with Claudia in the breakout room in a while the presentation. Otherwise, I would like to. There's one question: did service learning contribute to a more participative learning environment?
Okay, I just noted this question and also one other question, which I could just read. I will just answer very briefly. I also could read about what is a semi-structured interview. That meant that we had already written down some questions we were interested in, but we let the floor open to also give some new ideas. So semi-structured means you are asking questions, but the interviewers can also add some more things or can even tell some stories. This may be one short answer. And did service learning lead to a more participative learning culture? That's a bit a critical point, because it did, but it went of the quality criteria we learned about in the beginning. It was the weakest one, because
Claudia, you're muted now.
Yeah, I was muted by you.
Now I can hear you.
Okay. So did you get the answer of the semi-structured interview?
Yes.
Okay. So just yeah, some words about participation of the quality criteria which are connected with service learning. This was really one of the weakest. Yeah. So community engagement and all things or project-based learning, curriculum, also grounding, but participation is a long way to go. That was what we got as impressions, but it was a very good beginning. So thank you very much. Will be happy to answer some more questions later on in the breakout rooms.
Thank you, Claudia. And with this, I would like to give the floor to Margarita, who will tell us from her own experience as a teacher at the Bundesrealgymnasium in Grieskirchen. So,
yes. A big hello from Austria, from Grieskirchen. It's a little town near Linz. I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Margarita Kalivoda, and I teach German, philosophy, psychology, and ethics at this school. Our school is a high school for 14 till 18 years old, and it's a small school with approximately 250 pupils, and we are in a rural area, as I mentioned before. In each of the 4 grade levels, there are 3 classes. So let's share my screen now. I hope it works. Yes. Do you see the presentation?
Yes, we can see it perfectly.
Thank you. Okay, so our project was called #Planet.org with the word play planet. It's an ecological theme we were concerned about. No, how can I come to the next page?
Try the arrows on the computer.
The arrow? Yeah, I tried it, but it doesn't work.
You can also just press click on your touchpad. Maybe that will work. If not, maybe it's frozen.
Here.
Oh,
yes. Thank you.
Welcome.
So, how we got in contact with service learning. In 2019, the Pädagogische Hochschule Linz, the Pedagogical University of Linz, approached to us to be project partners for service learning in person of Claudia, you heard before. I was enthusiastic about this concept from the beginning because I saw it as an opportunity for my students to actively engage instead of just acquiring knowledge. During that time, the Fridays for Future movement gained momentum, and the issue of climate protection became increasingly important for the students. Moving from reading, watching, and talking to taking action became our motto for implementing the service learning project. How we got to know service learning. In several meetings with the 2 school-developed consultants from the Pedagogical University, our core team learned about the concept of service learning. During these afternoons, we were familiarized with the principles of service learning. What was previously unimaginable for some of us gradually became more and more concrete, thanks to the support of these advertisers. Together, we developed a timetable to realize our plan. Sometimes our mentors had to restrain us as teachers from developing our own project ideas too quickly. Generating a project idea was meant to happen within the students' teams, not be presented by us teachers beforehand. This approach would have been against participation, one of the 6 quality criteria. So we try to avoid this behavior. Moment, how can I come back? Could you please help me? I put the button 2 times. I pressed the button 2 times, and now I want to come back 1 page before.
I suggest you use the left arrow, maybe.
Yes. Okay. Let's continue. How we shared information. Following discussions with our headmistress, I informed the entire staff through a clear letter and conferences about the project's content and process. For example, the following questions were answered. When will which parts of the project take place? Which teachers and which teachers and subjects will take part? What will the pupils have to do? This early communication could reduce the concerns and fears of colleagues, because undertaking such a large project involving many teachers and students was not a common practice at our school. Providing information to parents early through a letter was also essential, especially regarding students engaging in activities outside of school. How we managed the project. For the overall planning and the long-term success of the project, it was important that one person was clearly in charge of the team, which in our case was me. Furthermore, there was a core team consisting of the 3 class teachers who served as the primary contact persons for their own students. They were responsible for the implementation of the project in their classes, such as introducing service learning, conducting feedback sessions, and supporting the teams. I tried to cooperate all aspects, took responsibility for the process, consistently kept the service learning criteria in mind, and communicated with the school management, colleagues, pupils, and parents on an ongoing basis. Even now, I'm the one who never loses sight of the long-term implementation. How the head teacher supported the project. At the very beginning, our head teacher informed us about the opportunity to cooperate with the university in terms of service learning, and created time slots for preparations and information to the entire staff. It is also important for the project that the headmaster allows openness and provides space, follows a clear school line, and networks with parents, media, companies, and the community in the run-up to the project. Last but not least, as a headmaster, it's also essential in this context to allow offers of support. For example, as we receive through our collaboration with the School Development Counseling Service from the nearby university. Be aware of facing setbacks. In our case, unfortunately, due to the pandemic, we had to wait another year before we started implementing the first project in 2021. The pandemic also forced us to think about other new ways of realizing projects, such as producing videos for the school's Instagram account. Finally, how we carried out the project. So in June 2021, we started our first climate protection project, #Planet.org, who we wanted to do together with all students in our starter classes during the same period. The first introductions took place at the Kick-Off 1 and 2 events. On these 2 mornings, the students were to familiarize themselves with the concept of service learning, acquire basic knowledge about the climate crisis, form teams, and develop initial project ideas. Over the summer holidays, the ideas were to continue to grow in their heads, and at the beginning of the new school year, the students had another 2 weeks to prepare and implement the project. Unfortunately, not all teachers joined in this intensive phase of work due to heavy content demands in some subjects. However, participating subjects allowed students the time to focus on the projects without affecting the overall class schedule. Student teams often collaborated with project partners, and class teachers permitted them to take a day off to implement their project ideas outside of school. The project ideas ranged from playful knowledge transfer on various aspects of climate protection in local kindergartens and primary schools, to collaborating with the regional recycling center for waste collection. There were also projects involving composing an environmental protection song and writing an article on climate protection and youth, with which the pupils made it onto the front page of a regional newspaper. Unfortunately, time is not sufficient here to inform you about the many other creative projects. The teams then reported on their experiences on the final presentation morning. Not in our case, not in front of the whole school, but only to their peers due to COVID-19 restrictions at that time. These presentations made it clear to us teachers just how wide-ranging the students' interests were and what other skills they had developed throughout the project beyond climate protection, organizing independently, working constructively with the team, contacting and communicating with project partners, and experiencing self-efficiency. As a school, following this successful project, we set ourselves the goal of implementing service learning in annual projects. Since then, 2 more climate protection projects have taken place in 2022 and 2023 with the following classes. For 2024, we aim to broaden our focus to various future topics that young people are concerned about: endangered democracy, diversity, migration, peacekeeping, social justice, and many more. After all that, what is our conclusion? Service learning encouraged our teachers and students to engage in project work. It provided theoretical background for teachers and the administration on organizing and implementing such projects. And it significantly improved communication within the stuff. And service learning allowed students the freedom to develop their own ideas in response to social challenges for the first time, empowering them to see themselves as the driving force of future developments. All in all, it can be said that service learning has put our school on an extremely positive path in recent years, one that will be surely continued in the coming years. I sincerely thank you for your attention and will be available to answer any questions in the breakout room. Thank you.
Well, dear Margarita, we thank you for your presentation and for your insights from your experience in your school. I think if you touched upon some very important issues, and I can see already in the chat that people were asking about it. The first one is obviously the support of the headmaster, the support of the school leadership. And Claudia already replied to the question how important it is that obviously it's very important. And from your example, I could see that your school leadership was enabling you to develop these projects by giving you extra time, the flexibility and resources to plan this. Is this correct?
Yes, he did. In my case, it was a she. She did. First thing for what I'm really thankful is that she gave us the information that there is the possibility to do that. And then for me, it was so helpful that I had the how can I say, the feedback from the university, because for my headmaster, I think it was really for her, it was helpful that it's not a project with which is hanging in some airspace, but it's connected with science. Yes.
So that there's some scientific support behind it,
Yeah.
that it's not just some fancy idea, but knowing that there is
exactly.
scientific support.
Yeah, for her it was really important, and for us as teacher, it gave us the security, and we had always the feedback from our advisors from the university. Yeah.
So it's the information flow that's important from the headmaster to the teachers. It's maybe the outside support. So maybe this could be a valuable lesson that if you would like, or if you're interested to implementing service learning in your school, maybe you can find partners in your country, that a university or a foundation that has also the scientific, let's say, reputation to help you in this, and maybe also convince your school leadership that this is indeed a good method and not just a fancy idea by a very engaged, motivated teacher. Obviously, I also took that flexibility is key. You know, you flexibility both from the school leadership, but also your own flexibility to react. You know, to react to changes and to allow also, you know, the students to be in the process and steering the process.
Yeah, for us it was a challenge to rely on the competences of the pupils, because as I mentioned, we had in our heads so many inspiring ideas which we connected with the subject of climate crisis. But it's really a challenge to give this responsibility of finding a good project idea to the students themselves.
I imagine.
And it was, there were wonderful projects, and I was really proud what they
Achieved.
they developed. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I think many people will want to hear more about your experience, and we will soon have this opportunity to discuss maybe with you more, and also with Marianne Capella, who is supporting your school from the University of Linz in the breakout room. And but I would like, having the schedule in mind, I would like to move on to the next presentation, to the next speaker, which it's me. So similar to Margarita, we would like to show you from our school that I'm representing an example of how service learning was used as a method to allow school development. And let me share my presentation with you. So I am just a very brief introduction to our school. We are the German School of Athens. We are a German school based in Greece. There are 135, 140 schools all over the world that function similarly. It's we follow the German curriculum, and we follow we offer as a high school diploma the German Abitur. Just we are about 1,200 students here from kindergarten to upper secondary school. So in 2021, there was the idea to create a new subject called something like global learning. We didn't know back then that it would be called like this, but the concept of the idea was that we wanted to create a subject, an elective subject from 7th to 9th grade that students can choose to do, but are not mandatory, are not forced to do. In the 7th grade, they have to select a subject. It could be French, it could be ancient Greek, it could be informatics, or we wanted to give them another option, which we called global learning. And we already knew that service learning, or that global learning and service learning, could really help us develop as an organization much better. So the purpose of this subject was to start in this year, and indeed in September 2023 we started with this new subject. And in order to create the concept and the curriculum, we formed a working group that was starting from scratch with nothing in mind, really, just knowing that we wanted to add this flavor into our school. We were looking at some similar subject that exists in Germany. Nothing like global learning existed at this point, but we did find the concept of learning through engagement, LDE, or service learning called, but we had no idea what it actually was. But once we started looking into it, it became quite clear, oh, this could be interesting. And we had a European project around this topic, together with some partners also of the SLEAD project, where we enabled especially those teachers to learn about what really service learning is, that we're also working on creating the curriculum for this new subject, global learning. So as an educational concept, we wanted to do the following without knowing that service learning might be the right tool for it yet. So this is something we agreed on, that we wanted to offer students an opportunity to deal and discuss the global changes. The world is changing, things are getting more and more complex and complicated, and we wanted to strengthen students' skills. We wanted to prepare them really for the world, to have some global awareness, to put them in a position that they can act and respond to challenges. And we wanted to combine these different aspects from starting from the individual to over the family to really the global world, and see how things are all interconnected. And it was important for us, while we are creating the subject, that it needed to be a holistic learning process where the students can be engaged, where they are being responsible for their own that we wanted to really put the students in the center of the action and take the role of the teacher a little, not a little bit, but really out, or at least more as a, as a coach of the student, as somebody that accompanies their learning journey. So unfortunately, I only found this image in German, but it just shows you the complex spheres that we wanted to combine in the subject, starting from the individual person to local to global, and cover areas like social issues, economic issues, politics, and also ecological issues. And increasing the complexity, we wanted to become self-aware and then understand the different spheres that make all these issues connect on a global level. Oh, now it doesn't continue. And also we understood that the education for sustainable development has to address or feeds on those different capitals, the ecological capital, social, cultural, political, and economical. And that also in order for students to really start getting a sense for the complexities, they needed to understand how these different capitals or these different issues are interconnected through actions, relationships, perception, and so on and so on. And we wanted the subject to be very competence-oriented. For this, we found the UNESCO competences for education for sustainable development, which turned out to be very close to what we try to achieve. If we manage that these students can get these 8 competences, we thought that they are really in a position to better respond to the global and future challenges. I mean, sustainability is an issue that our students now will most likely or very certainly deal with them all of their lives. And these 8 competences for critical thinking, meaning to kind of question the norms and the practices, and to build their own opinions, to reflect on their values, to understand what their values really are, to position themselves within kind of a sustainability discussion, the competence for system thinking, to see how everything is interconnected, to understand and also to deal with uncertainty, and that not everything can be influenced on all levels. The competences, the anticipatory competency, to look ahead, to kind of think more strategically, to and also the normative competences to reflect and to negotiate about principles, and that if, for example, you have an ecological issue, you have to be aware how this is connected with the economical and the social issues, and so on. So I think you get the idea what we were trying to do, and you also understand that this is really a very complex issue. And also we thought, since we are creating a new subject, we wanted it to be built on modern, innovative, and especially student-centered methodologies. We wanted to put really the students in the driving seats. We wanted to do it as little theory as possible, as more practical hands-on experience. Ideally, we wanted it to be individualized or personalized or differentiated depending on the group. It should be have project-based learning. It should be a collaborative learning environment. We were open. We wanted to welcome external partners for impulses, and and to have project work, common group work as a core element in the subject. And as you can, now that you know a little bit about service learning, once we then learned about service learning, we understood that service learning really offers a good solution to this idea of the subject that we had, that we knew would be ambitious, that we knew would be very complicated to implement really. But we understood, wow, service learning really has all the key components of what we were trying to do. Also, especially since service learning has these activities of the connection to the curriculum, the meaningful service in the community, and the critical reflection through all the stages that allows for the students to learn. And the same way, the different actors in the service learning, that we have a partner from the outside, the student, and the instructor, which, you know, really the teacher is not being a teacher in the classical sense, but really somebody that accompanies and supports the students in their ideas. I'm not quite sure if you have seen a similar image like this last week, but I really like this image because it really puts service learning in the middle and distinguishes very nicely what service learning is and what service learning is not. And since we wanted to connect the academic study with engagement outside of the school, with practical experience, and have the students be in the driving seat, it really made sense for us to use service learning in this new subject. The problem, though, is that in 7th grade, students would be overwhelmed if we ask them to do service learning as a subject immediately. They come to, at least in our case, in Greece, the primary school is 6 years. So in 7th grade, there are also people coming from Greek primary schools. We first of all needed to make sure that all these demanding implementation of a service learning project needs to be practiced. We cannot expect that students already bring in the skills that are needed, the skills for project-based work, for research, for collaboration. It's something they need to learn. So we knew that in this new subject, which is going to last 3 years, we needed to slowly increase the complexity of the issues. So the way we designed the curricula is now that in the first year, we practice a lot methods of group work, of presentation, of collaboration, and so on. And at the end of the first year, in the 7th grade, there will be, let's say, a class project where everybody together will work on a school internal project. Service learning means that you should do a project outside, but we think that this is maybe in the first year, not maybe it works. We will see it this year, but our idea is to first let them try and practice a little bit service learning or service learning methodologies, while in the next year in the 8th and 9th grade, we will open up the classroom. We will ask them first in the 8th grade in bigger groups to do a service learning project, and in the 9th grade then in small groups of maybe 3, max 4 persons to do service learning. So we are quite happy with this approach. We think this makes perfectly sense. And to give you an idea how the curriculum looks like and what kind of key questions we are trying to answer together with the students is, so we were looking at the topics of sustainability, and we chose for the 7th grade to start this new subject with the question, what is a good life? Let them discuss the different, or let them also acknowledge and understand the different values that there exist. And right, and as you can see, for each context, as we called it, we chose a few methods that we introduced to them, so they can practice reflection, that they understand how to give feedback to each other and to themselves, start introducing collaborative forms of learning, practice them to do research, presentations, and so on and so on. So this is our approach to this subject. And the questions that we are trying to pursue with the students, so each of this context has 3 questions, where the students can choose, or where we guide this together with the students, guide to find answer to these questions. At the end, I would, because I also saw this question coming up earlier about the evaluation, we think that, or what we also wanted to achieve in this subject was, it's not a traditional subject. So we said that there will not be any written or oral exams, not like in the classical sense that they will have to write Klausur, a written exam, but that they're going to be graded on the processes, on the type of presentations, and the products of the work, both in groups especially. So a lot of yeah, how the grade in the end is being drawn up, this is being left to the teacher basically, and they will judge this on their interactions. I should probably say that also there are 2 teachers that are implementing this currently, because it's a new subject and because we wanted in a class to have always 2 people that can support the different group works, which is especially in the beginning very challenging. So students are keeping learning diaries. They do some self-assessment. They have to do group presentations. Depending on the topic and the questions, there might be also interviews or podcasts or videos. This is really a learning portfolio. This is really up to the teachers, obviously, but also to the group and to the kind of activities they are doing in this subject. So I'm already at the end. I could talk a lot about many of these issues in great detail, but as you understand, for us, service learning was something we found out and learned about during the process of developing the subject. But it was really for us quite obvious that service learning is a perfect method, that it really encapsulated everything we were trying to achieve here. Make it a participatory learning environment, try to really ease the students into becoming responsible for their own learning process. And it's obviously an experiment that we are doing. And I can therefore say also that the support of the school leadership here was obviously very important. It was an idea that they were really supporting to create the subject and to use service learning. We had a working group that was meeting regularly for many months, creating the subject, collecting the material. For this, the colleagues were allowed to miss their lessons basically. So it was really a common effort that affected a lot of people, students and teachers, but we really wanted to make this happen, and we are very happy that we started this year with the first run. So this is basically the end of my run through this subject. If you want to learn more about this, I'm very happy together with a colleague that is here that is actually teaching the subject to answer your question in the breakout rooms. So with this, since I was talking so much now, I couldn't really follow the chat. But let me have the chat, read the chat in a moment. As I said, I'm sure that we can answer most of the questions in the breakout rooms. And not to keep you waiting and not to keep Maureen waiting, I would like to hand over the floor to our guest speaker from across the ocean, from the University of Pittsburgh, and to give us, maybe an American perspective about service learning, especially since the whole concept of service learning is I think was founded or was drafted in the United States. So Maureen, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Jens, and everybody else who is part of this. It's become a really interesting exchange here, especially last week as we talked about the fundamentals. And I think you'll see that there are some real similarities in kind of this long-term arc of becoming proficient in service learning, and especially looking at the really critical role of student leaders and the university and the school leaders right there. I started working and pioneered service learning at our university in 1997. I've been working since then I designed 18 different projects over the years, and I've been working in 8 countries. Most recently this summer, I spent most of the summer in Kenya, but I've been working in Uganda, Ethiopia, Germany, Belgium, other places like that to really try to see what it might look like to do it differently in different locations. And I think that my work is important because we're part of a school of education. And so we not only prepare teachers who are eager to do this, but they themselves have had experiences while they were students doing service learning and kind of seeing how things begin to unfold, and then became emboldened to try to do that in their own schools, or even in their own schools where they were the principals or the department head. I'm going to talk about 3 things that I heard partly from last week, but also that reflects a few ideas in the chat. What, who, and how. So what, trying to think about what do you really need to do to start, but then really to sustain service learning, to institutionalize it. And I thought it really comes down to recognizing what it takes to be able to fully put into this kind of arc of action. Because indeed, like Jens is doing this in a long-term project with an arc, it takes a while to really plan it. And it's not really about having the students have a different project, but having a community identify a need they need, that they come up with the projects, the students see something that they're really fascinated with, that the students and the community together say, this would be a good place for us to be able to collaborate. And so getting out into your local community and to build that trust often takes a long time, especially if they're not used to the schools being connected to the broader community, if they really hadn't had a lot of applied projects from the school, if maybe there's a disconnect in some way as far as language or migrant status or something like that, that they hadn't seen the students as folks who they could work with. The important thing is that you also do documentation the whole way through. And luckily, this is a great place. Kids love documentation on social media. We've made podcasts and things that are kind of public facing. But the key thing is to be able to do it once you had a time for reflection among yourselves. It's very easy to just put your first impressions out there in the community, but sometimes that's counterproductive, especially if you have a negative view of the community or you're kind of candidly sharing your preconceptions. So doing internal work, doing the reflections privately, and then sharing documentation all the way through. I'm a cultural anthropologist by training. So of course, I love the idea of celebrations and rituals to kick off the event. But we really didn't realize how important final celebrations were until we ran into pandemic things, or we ran into other places where they're like, well, we've been doing all this work together. Do we really need another party? You need another party. And I think that's a good thing to not, overlook, because the parents come, how many times do the parents really see what the kids are doing and what the kids remember from a project? So having the kids come to the community center or to the school, I think also really important is to bring in members of the community who you worked with, because they also may not feel that if they don't have a kid, they're not really welcome at the school. So having that kind of public advocacy where you have the kids, young kids even, speaking about what they liked about the project, what they learned, how they connected it to solar energy or history or democratic processes. That's amazing when you hear young kids say that something they learned is going to stick with them and that they learned it by doing it. And not only does that have a great kind of witnessing for your school and your project, which is of course great for any kind of school leadership role, but those kids really develop that ability to publicly speak. It's one thing to learn to speak in a classroom, but to be able to speak out in a public forum and have people clap for you, that really stays with them. And then you wouldn't believe how easy it is to get kids to want to do another service learning project. So getting it off the ground is one challenge, but really if you do a lot of celebrations and you share their own success stories in their own words, you're going to find that it gets easier and easier. And I'm glad to see several of these projects also had different ways of creating final deliverables and to be able to share what they did. If you tell kids that they are going to be able to share what they learned and say, you can do it any form you want to. Kids who otherwise, may not speak much in a classroom, suddenly a group of them together have written a rap about what they learned by being out in the community. And that's something that they feel like their own forms of expression are valued, that their own artistic capacities are expanded beyond typical forms of testing or showing what they learned. So I have to say, you really can't have too many parties. The second thing is who should lead? When I got started, we were looking for anybody who would possibly be willing to add this level of additional work to their classrooms. And we learned a very interesting lesson early on. Of course, you want people who want to participate. You don't want to force people to volunteer, force people to do service learning, right? You may need to support one another, but you want to be able to have people who want to do it. What we found was that having senior people early on step forward to take those kind of risks, those kinds of new ways of teaching, those kinds of new ways of saying, this is part of our school, this is something I value, that made all the difference. So whether it meant having the school director come to visit different sites or to visit with the kids when they were in that messy period of discussing and brainstorming and understanding the complexity of a problem, having the senior people present, visiting, appreciating what they're doing, and when possible, even being an integral member of the team. Of course, no one has additional time to do these kinds of projects, but as soon as senior people get involved, they tend to get hooked. Because think of who many school directors are. They're teachers, or they had been classroom teachers. And you'd be surprised how much joy school directors find in being back in hands-on, community-based, critical, thoughtful projects, that they are just part of a team, so they don't have to do all the work. But we have found that many senior faculty and senior school leaders suddenly said, you know what, that was fun. That was why I got into education in the first place. The good news in all this is over the different decades, we are finding that new people coming into teaching actually had experience doing service learning when they were in school, maybe when they were in a teacher's preparation program. And so when they join the teaching faculty at any university or in the school, they already know a bit about it and how to do it well. So it's quite wonderful to be able to see that this suddenly becomes easier and easier as generations themselves have firsthand experience working in service learning. And the last part is just how to think about institutionalizing it so it doesn't even just get off to a good start, but it's sustainable as a part of your school culture. Couple things that we learned that I thought might not be obvious early on, but it's something that it's because you're going to do a lot of public presentations and PR for what you're working on, it's something that kids actually look forward to. And I've started thinking about how important it is to do it at some transition points. So for example, your first year in the upper secondary school, or your first year of coming into a new combined building or something, having that be a marker of coming of age. We're now old enough that we can do a good service learning project. Our teachers trust us to come up with our own topics within this series of questions. That sense of being capable, welcome, and expected to be able to do well really makes a big difference at those transition years in schools. It also helps build community, especially if you have students who come from many different primary schools who come together into an upper secondary or lower secondary school. And that sense of we did something new together that we could only accomplish because all of us students are here in this new school together actually left a legacy for the students to then say, hey, I feel like I belong here. I feel like I could contribute something worthwhile. And something that Jens had also talked about is looping, where when you do a project, it might involve people in 9th grade, but then they might share what they're doing or help share it by demonstrating it to kids in 3rd grade, so that you build that anticipation over the school years. And explaining things to younger kids makes sometimes teenagers or middle schoolers or even 5th graders say, wow, I really can do something, because when I was just a kid in 3rd grade, I only knew these things. So having that sense of students being role models for each other seems to help a lot in building anticipation and in kind of sharing the joy of this new kind of work. And Margarita also talked about how important it is to be able to have somebody consistent, to be able to have a relationships with your community organizations, other schools in your neighborhood, so that from one year to the next, you have an idea of what somebody did 3 years ago or 7 years ago. So that when you have a new teacher who says, I really want to do this kind of project, but I just don't know anybody here who I could work with or how I might connect to the community. Having somebody in the central office, in the principal's office at a high level who keeps an ongoing list of partner organizations or the university contacts who they could call on for help, somebody who keeps that updated list and then stays in touch with folks in the community. Because there's nothing better than, kind of trying to convince other people to work with you as a school. And then the next year they come to you and say, please, can we work together? So this is a really wonderful way to sustain it. It does take somebody who's not involved in just one project, but to be able to keep that list of partner organizations and then to find out what the community needs, what the community wants, so that you can develop modes of evaluation that give back to them in ways that could help them, or that can help them with programming, so that you can later say, well, our kids are doing a service learning program and they're putting on this ecology camp and they're working with an empty lot to build a community garden. And that idea came from you. So to be able to show, yes, we are listening, we are working with you, we're having reciprocity. And those things really make a big difference long-term, not just in building trust, but building capacity. So like the others, I'm really eager to talk to you in breakouts and over the course of the next several modules. And I will look to see what also is percolating in the chat. We've got all sorts of new things there. All right, thank you for inviting me also.
Well, thank you for joining us and to offer us a little bit your personal opinion or your experience experience with service learning in the United States. So the first part of this event today is coming to an end. We have talked a lot. We have given you a lot of food for thought, a lot of impulse. I think it's probably important to digest a little bit. And in a few minutes, we will open up the breakout rooms, and each of our speakers today will be present in one of the breakout rooms. Ale, maybe you can already open them up, because you are free to choose where to go. And obviously you can also switch in between. So we will allow you to choose now one of the 4 breakout rooms. We obviously, you are free to share with or ask whatever you would like to ask. We had thought of some guiding questions. Obviously any questions to the presentation. We can talk about together what kind of experience do we have, and also what experience we have with school development in connection, maybe. So basically everything goes. So whenever you're ready, join the breakout rooms, and after that, after the time is over, we will meet again in the plenum and close the session for today. So I'm looking forward to meeting you and maybe get a bit more interactive. So Ale, the breakout rooms are open.
Yes.
Okay. Could we create a fourth one for Maureen? The interaction you had?
Oh, yeah, thank you very much, Jens. The time is already really moving forward. I will try to keep it short. Many of the questions were about how can we start service learning project as a teacher, but also how can we start it as a school leader. So it's really putting the research results to practice, and we discussed about this. And I mentioned that both ways from the research results are possible. You can start with service learning bottom up as a teacher, but you also can start, or it's good to start bottom down as a school leader. But anyway, you need some people going away with you, and to look for some colleagues and also parents and other actors who are really supporting you. And the question was also if service learning has a negative impact on cognitive learning, on graduation. And as far as I know from the research, that's not my research focus, but it's not the case, not at all. You even gain more competences, but it's the main focus on cross-curricular competences. And the last question, or one of the last questions, or one more question was about changing a school into more democratic organizations. And we talked about having a shared vision or a shared mission then for a school, and that really the partnership between research and practice between universities and schools is a very fruitful one, because some people of the room said that, as also Margarita told us before, when you can say in your school as a teacher or a school leader, that's a topic in research, universities are working with us. So this kind of partnership and collaboration is very helpful for the initiation of service learning projects. I think these were the most important questions we discussed in our room. And we had a colleague from Kenya who also shared with us his experiences, and he agreed with most of these discussion results. Thank you.
Thank you. Very interesting. Margarita, what about your group?
Your mic, you're on mute. Can you?
Yes. We talked about project ideas we shared. And the different age groups we teach in school. We talked about the role of the headmaster, for the very important role of the headmaster, and how he or she should stand behind the idea of service learning. And if it's possible to connect the curriculum to the project ideas the pupil have, and how we can which connections we can make between curriculum and the ideas the students implement. Yes, I think that was it.
Oh, okay, it's quite a lot of topics already. So, in our group, there were some questions about the subject itself, about the reasons for creating this subject global learning and how to connect it with service learning. We talked a little bit about how this is actually implemented in practice. There were questions about the cooperation with external partners, of the need for students to first really practice, especially at a young age, like 7th grade, to practice the skills that are required for service learning. There were some comments about or I suggested also that service learning can be started to be implemented across all subjects. It doesn't have to be a specific subject like global learning for needed, but you can do it in any subject. Maybe it's a time issue because you need to, it would be helpful to maybe have 2-3 teachers in a class collaborate on this. But that also that if you start using service learning, you shouldn't have the ambition to make it perfect, but that it's more important to start with something and then increase one quality criteria after the other. Let's say it's better to do that than not to start a service learning initiative because you feel like you cannot already do all the 6 quality criteria. These are really just the guidance. You should just go ahead and do it. I'm sure I missed some things, Marcel, if I missed something, but
Don't think so.
Perfect. Then, Maureen, I hand over to you.
You know what? That's a great transition, Jans, because that way is one of the things that we talked about too, that maybe logistically it's very helpful to start as a club or something that happens outside the classroom or after regular school hours, just to build that momentum and so that people can just try something and you're not under the pressure to deliver a finished service learning product by the end of a semester or something like that. And then by having people who are teachers and who are students and who are principals who are willing to stay and kind of play with the kids and have it be a more open-ended way, then it is something that can spread to different classrooms. And that came up in our group of how exciting it is actually to work with somebody who's in a different discipline than you, especially if you're at a secondary level where maybe the physics teachers and the art teachers don't really do things together like they might in a primary school. And so that's a really exciting way of enriching your life as a teacher too. It's not all about giving away, but how much you receive. And that probably is one of the biggest lessons in 25 years of doing this for me is you ask everybody, did you give more or receive more? And everybody says, I received so much. I really got a lot out of this. And you ask everybody and they all say, oh, I got so much, right? So it really feels like it's been a successful time to spend with each other. We had a really interesting conversation about really this generational change of people who grew up with service learning, were looking for that when they were looking for a high school or even a university to go to, and then even go on into careers and join people who are working around the world to be able to connect and support service learning. So we were really excited about the prospects of enhancing democracy, having people just listen to each other, work on something tangible together, and take risks versus trying to figure out like you've got the right answer. And probably the biggest takeaway that I got from this interesting mix of people who are in my breakout room is you're not alone. There are people who've tried this before or tried it in different ways. And we just looked even across the people who are on our screen and thought, wow, I might be one of the people pushing this at my school, but I've got a whole bunch of folks I could ask questions to, I could reach out to. And maybe I even found somebody in my own country who I had no idea was doing this. So that's really a big thank you to those of you who've organized this and have put together such good structure, because not feeling alone is one of the most important things you can do to build a civil society. Feel like you have a shared stake in mutual success.
Well, if this is not a great way to end it, and I think indeed a platform like this, webinars like this where we have a chance to come together and connect should tell everybody that yes, you are not alone, and it's always good to find colleagues and people that you can start implementing new exciting things like service learning. We are really running out of time. We are at the 2-hour mark. We were even wondering if we managed to last 2 hours, but I understand we could easily have spoken even longer time. We don't want to keep you really any further. I just would like to point out that if if you want to know more about the basics of service learning, about the methodology, next week there comes the second part of the module 1 of the really the service learning 101. Same time as today, next Wednesday. You should please give us also the feedback about what you liked and what you did not like about today. Please feel free to give us your honest feedback in order for us to reflect upon our work and improve for the future. Another reminder that you can find some additional content about service learning on our online platform that we created within this project. I think all these links are being sent into the chat. And of course, if you are still on Facebook, please give us a follow. And so you can also stay up to the news, to the upcoming webinars that are going to be announced there, and to the next activities. With this, I really would like to thank all of you to be here. I want to thank especially Claudia, Margarita, and Maureen for your contribution. I want to thank the team of New Horizons for setting up all the technical issues. And yeah, I thank you for everybody. And I guess this is for me then to say goodbye. I hope to see you again in one of the future webinars. And if you want to stay in contact with us, I think we have shared already our email address. You can find us also through the website or through Facebook. So don't hesitate contacting us. I'm sure we can continue our discussions and conversations. So thank you. This is the end for today, unfortunately.